Okay, well, we're live. Anybody watching, you want to just put those comments in there. Let us know that that you can see us and all that. We're just gonna chill for a few minutes while everyone kind of funnels in and all that. So um, happy to be here. Happy to have my guests. Um, Chris, I've known you for a while on LinkedIn. I think you just said 13
Yep,
months, which
13 months.
if anyone's new to LinkedIn, like 13 months on LinkedIn is feels like an eternity, like a good eternity, not a bad eternity. Hey, Giuseppe, good to see you. Um, but we've known each other for a bit, and Chris is a good guy to have on the show because he's kind of a LinkedIn Live expert. He's got a show a couple of times a week, two different shows. Last night was Ending the Stigma, which, my gosh, that had got to be one of your more meaningful and impactful
Dude,
shows.
that's what I told my guest, Ashley. She was the original guest. And we were
Yeah.
texting after the show. I said, this show is going to stand out. Um, real quick, just for anybody that's watching that wants to know what happened. So we bring Ashley on the show to tell about her story of growing up with her dad in prison. And I sent her the Restream link to join, and I sent her a YouTube link to send to anybody that wasn't on LinkedIn so they could
Hmm.
watch it too. Somehow her dad got the Restream link. And so
Wow.
he pops up backstage and he's watching like 20, 30 minutes of the show. And he's just chilling back there. Like he doesn't even know he has the ability to come on.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I finally told her and was like, hey, your dad is backstage. Like, you want to bring him on? And we brought him up. And it was just so cool to hear, uh, one, to watch his face as she was talking about her dad, and then
Hmm.
just to bring him up and then them going back and forth. It definitely is going to stand out.
Oh, for sure. It was fun to watch. Had no idea that he was going to come in as a guest as well, and
Yeah,
just to see them
nobody did.
interact and just to feel that intense love between them was
Yeah.
just something that was incredible for everyone in the audience to feel as well. I want to say hi to some people. Chris, apparently you're up on there too. Chris knows far more about LinkedIn Live than I do, so he'll probably be doing all kinds of fancy tricks, putting me to shame this whole time, which I encourage
No.
because then I'll figure it out later. Hey,
Oh no.
Christine, Michelle, Michael, good to see all y'all. Um, Chris, we first met 13 months ago. I don't even know why we met, but we just kind of had a lot of the same kind of friend group, I think, on LinkedIn, and probably
Hmm.
still do. Um, Lisa Stromball, Louis Colombo.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm not, make Julie Griffin, people like that. So good
Yeah.
people. Just kind of, I don't know. That's how it is on LinkedIn. Like you maybe think there's like these certain kind of sections where for whatever or kind of groups on LinkedIn, for whatever reason, certain people in different kind of corners of LinkedIn all just seem to know each other.
Hmm.
And it's a fairly small community because only 1% of people post regularly. So
Yeah.
those 1% of people on LinkedIn can get to know each other pretty well. And
Yeah.
if somebody's posting weekly, there's a very, very good chance that if I don't know them, one of my connections does. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's a good reason to start posting. If any of you are out there and you're thinking about posting, it helps you tap into a really solid community. Greg, I met you a week ago, I
That's good.
think,
Yeah.
just about a week ago at Mitch Whiting's backyard campout. He if any of y'all know Mitch, he's a content creator here on LinkedIn, just real positive guy. And Greg and I were both invited to go camping in his backyard, which, hey, that was fun. That was a good time. A little unusual, but that's kind of Mitch's style, and Tatum as well. She helped plan it all. Um, and I was just captivated by your story. And if anyone's hearing me, my voice is all deep right now. It's because I got a little bit of a cold. Don't worry, I can't give it to you over the internet. So, but it's not that bad. But I met you, and you have got just one heck of a story. I'd love to kind of just get into that a little bit and have you kind of share that with us from whichever point you want to start, and as much detail as you want. Or although we like the details here, so Greg, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing your story of kind of what has happened to you in the last few years?
Well, my life has been a series of ups and downs. Right out of high school, I tried to get into the Navy, got accepted nuclear engineer, and 2 days before my ship date, got shingles, got medically discharged, re-enlisted, waited a year, went and lived with my dad in Laguna Beach, and broke my collarbone a month before that ship date. So at that point, kind of just thought maybe the Navy wasn't for me, and but just kept pushing along, trudging along. Worked a bunch of random jobs, and my dad was a pilot. My grandfather was a pilot, so always kind of had that in the back of my mind. But my dad, since 9/11 and the downturn of the aviation industry and everything, my dad was like, I don't know if you want to become a pilot. Like, we'll see what happens. Like, it's not necessarily the best job. And then all of a sudden, this huge like upcoming pilot shortage was coming. So he's like, maybe you should become a pilot. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
There you go. There you go.
Went to flight school. Took about 9 months to get all my certificates. Then flight instructed for about a year and a half, just building time.
Awesome.
Started flying cargo and did that for about 2 years. And I was just at the point of I had my application in with American Airlines. I was talking to recruiters, talking to chief pilot. Like, they're like, all right, we're talking about, a training date about a year out. I'm like, sweet, this is gonna work. And then COVID hit, and the whole airline industry tanked. And the cargo run that I was doing was kind of to a vacation spot, and it just completely shut down. Our base started shutting down. They just started sending us all around. And me and my wife had always had the dream of living out of a vehicle and just traveling around. So we kind of took that as the perfect opportunity to live out of the back of our truck. We had just a little camper shell, and
Wow.
we went around.
See, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. When I first had heard that you were living in your truck, I was kind of like, oh gosh, poor Greg. Greg was going to have his truck. And then I start talking to Greg more, and I find out that was intentional. That was something that you had wanted to do for a while. And, that's why I have a minivan, is because I'm like, well, hey, if I ever have to, I can turn this thing into a stealth sleeper van and hit the streets. Right now, it might be more expensive it might be cheaper to have an apartment than live in your van right now because of gas prices. Yeah.
You hit it just right. Like, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of COVID, gas prices were at like an all-time low.
It was like $2 a gallon. It was incredible. You do anything.
So we had a lot of fun. We went to a lot of national parks, and I had a bunch of hotel points from being a pilot. So I got a hotel credit card, and we'd do like 2 or 3 nights on the road, 2 or 3 nights in a hotel, and then go and stay a week with a family member or friend or something. And it was a lot of fun. But then it started getting dark, and like, okay, is the airline industry ever going to come back around? Like,
because your savings are kind of dwindling.
Yeah. Well, we did surprisingly well, but there is that, like, it's always in the back of your mind, like, is it always going to be like this?
Right.
Just like, is this how the world is now? Like, are we entering the apocalypse and like total societal collapse, and like gonna have to start figuring out how to hunt and gather again?
All right, that's our next LinkedIn Live. Hunting and gathering for the stay tuned.
So I started looking for work, and a couple months later, and just could not get anything. Was applying for jobs that I was like way more qualified for, that I'd even had offers for in the past, and just couldn't get anything. And funny enough, I don't know if I told you this, but that's the first time I created a LinkedIn account.
There you go.
My uncle was like, yeah, you're probably gonna have to go to Alaska and do all the, like, fly out in the bush or something like that if you want to get a job. And he's like, but I always find jobs through like back channels, like, you got to try LinkedIn. So I was like, all right, I'll try LinkedIn. made a profile, started looking at some different companies, and heard about this one company called Desert Jet down in Southern California that flies corporate jets, and just put, I think the application was through LinkedIn, and just put like a ton of time, and like, I don't know, it was just like a kind of a spur in the moment. It was like middle of the night, and just just stayed up like all night. I was like, I got to do this. Put in like tons of effort into it, and got that job. Moved to California. Worked there for a year, and through the ends of COVID, I guess, and now everything's turning back around. Airlines are hiring like crazy. Just got a job with American Airlines.
Yeah.
And it's my dream job, and yeah, it's crazy to see how much things can change. And I thought I thought total societal collapse. I thought I was going to be on the street forever, and then
Wow.
a year later, I got my dream job. It's looking good. So.
That's cool. I think it's actually neat that you're able to do that with your family, of going around living in a truck. Kids don't think in terms of success like we do, right? For a kid, they're thinking we're hitting the road and we get to live in our truck and everything, and that's fun. Like, I'm thinking back on my childhood, and some of the best experiences that I ever had is when we were roughing it, right? Because if you get excited about something, your kids are going to get excited. If you get worried, your kids are going to get worried.
Yeah.
That's parenting 101 from a guy who doesn't have kids. So
my kids loved it. Like, it was 100% attention on them. Like, we stopped at every playground along the way.
Oh, that's perfect.
Tons of swimming, and went to the beach, and they talk about it all the time. They're like, "Dad, can we go camping again?"
Okay, I'm going to ask a couple of tough questions, and I want to give Chris is doing a great job. He's like my moderator on this. He's dropping all the stuff in the comments. A lot of people are coming over because they know Chris. So just good to see all y'all. Andrew, Denise, Karen, Mary Ann. I don't know you, but I'm going to get to know you, right? So that's a great thing about LinkedIn. You can get to know all kinds of new people all over the place. Greg, I know you had some family struggles kind of throughout that. Can I ask a little bit about that, or is that too personal? Or
no, it's okay. I mean, I guess they say all is well that ends well. Some regrets. I ended up separating with my wife, and we divorced just a couple months ago. I really don't know if knowing that I could have done something different to save that marriage, I would have done it. Looking back, I don't know if it would have been better to just stay in the apartment and pay rent, and feel that savings down a little bit.
But you never know. You never know on something like that. And
I never know. And it had been a dream of ours since we first started dating, and so I don't know. It's hard.
Sorry, I'm not smiling at you. Karen is saying, Sam, you could travel the nation in your minivan, having block parties in every state. Just made me crack up. Okay, back to serious, Sam. Please go ahead, Greg. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I would imagine 2 months out from something is not enough time to kind of even be able to understand it and reflect in a way that can make you understand the whole situation. Sounds that sounds tough. I know that I saw your kids at the party. They were having a great time, real kind of, you just know, like when certain kids you see, they're just sitting there playing on their little devices. Other kids you see, they're playing, they're enjoying the outdoors, and you just know that's a kid who's being raised right. And I think you're doing a good job on that, Greg. But okay, so you were worried about potentially being on the streets for a while. You've had all this kind of rough stuff happen to you, and now you have a job coming up as a commercial airline pilot for American Airlines.
Wow.
Can we talk about like a transition there? Like, that is, most of us on our best day are not going to get a job like that. We have to really work towards it, which you did. But it's it's not going to be expected. It's just how does that even feel like when you found out you got the job? What were kind of those feelings like? Was it surreal? Like I have to like believe this? Were you like rereading the email over and over, or what happened?
Yeah, it still feels surreal. It's still at any moment like, is somebody gonna pinch me and I'm gonna wake up and this isn't really happening, or is another pandemic gonna strike and the airline's gonna be like, yeah, just kidding, we're not hiring you anymore. But I got the. I was really happy at my last job. I worked for a really great company, loved what I was doing, and but had my application in American for several years, and had been working with an airline recruiter. He's helping me with my resume and all that stuff, and just kept updating and wasn't really expecting anything. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, holy crap, American Airlines just sent me an email and they want me to come interview. And then waited. It was like there was like a 3-day span of of interview dates, and I was working for the next 3 days, and I was like, oh man. And then the next opportunity to interview after that was a month later. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I signed up for I was like, I gotta work, and so I signed up for the month later one, and then called one of my mentors, and he's like, dude, you got to do it now. Like, a month is too long. You got to do it now. So called into work, was able to get the last day of my sequence. I was able to get home a little bit early, and I emailed American Airlines. Was like, hey, I signed up for the later interview. Is there any chance that I can get this sooner interview? And luckily they were able to get me they weren't able to get me the date that I wanted, but they were able to get me about a week later. So it was a month.
Yeah.
Got the interview. Can't exactly say that I nailed it. I got the job.
That's all that matters.
What was your ex's reaction when she found out that you had done this American Airlines job?
I have no idea, but I mean, it was like.
Was she a little surprised?
I told her, and then it was like 3 days of silence, and then it was like, congratulations. So
that sums it up. That's pretty much perfect. What do your kids think now that you told them, like, hey, I'm going to be an actual pilot? Not that they're not that. Anyway, I'll stop shooting myself in the foot. What would your kids think?
I try to explain it to them, like, we'll see the big planes flying overhead. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be flying one of those, and they're like, you already are a pilot. Like,
they were already proud of you.
That's old news, Dad. Old news.
Aren't you guys so excited? We have this new job, and we're gonna be able to like do things, and maybe buy a house someday. And they're like, okay.
Great. All they care is that that they can be with you. I'm sure any kid is just happy to be with their folks. So it's just an incredible story. You've been on LinkedIn for a while, but you're relatively new, I would say, to being active on LinkedIn. I think this counts as being active. If y'all want to go check out his profile, he's just a great guy to get to know. Very open, very honest. Like I said, I've known him for about a week, and we're already able to have this conversation, which I think speaks volumes as to his likability and character. But that's we'll get more into questions on that. Chris, I want to give you some time here. I've heard bits and pieces of your story. So I had two things with my hands, but they're around here, so you can't see. I've heard bits and pieces of your story, but I haven't really heard kind of the whole thing. And I know there's a lot to it. And we've got a lot of people joining us because Chris, like I said, he's the LinkedIn live stream, go-to guy. He's figured out a way to pair his channel with this live stream. So we've got a lot of people coming from over in his neck of the woods. But I love to just hear kind of a story of at whatever point you want to start, just kind of all the way through with as much detail as you want to add.
Okay. So first off, congrats on the job, Greg. That's awesome. That's like every child's dream, I guess, except for your kids, to be a pilot, right? Let's see. Where do I want to start? So I most of y'all know this. A lot of you may not. I went to prison in 2000 and what year did I go down? 2008. I did a little over 8 years, almost 8.5 years behind drugs and just other stupid stuff. And it really, I was always the good guy growing up. Like, I was the one in church that, all the moms wanted their daughter to date and all that kind of stuff. And when I got out of the house, I just kind of went a little off into left field. Started doing drugs and everything that comes with it, and all the stupid decisions you make while you're on drugs led to more stupid decisions, which led to more stupid decisions. Went to prison on a 15-year sentence, had to do 7.5, made my first parole. In Texas, I don't know how it is in other states, but in Texas, they can deny your parole whenever you come up for parole for whatever reason. I made my first parole, got out after 8 years, 3 months, and 3 weeks. Stayed with my granddad for a little bit, got a job. Like I'm really very blessed in that I haven't struggled too much since I've been out, but I've seen a bunch of guys that have. Got a job working for an electronics recycling company not long after I got out, and have kind of moved up a little bit in the company since then. But it was while I was in prison that, I grew up as a Christian. I grew up in a really strong Christian household. But it was while I was in prison that I really came to understand, you grow up hearing Jesus loves you, God loves you, and all that kind of stuff. It never really clicked, though, because it was always, there wasn't that relationship with the Lord there. But it was while I was in prison that I actually felt, it was a crazy experience, but I actually felt the love of God. And I was just sitting there in that chapel, just crying and weeping as I felt it. And that was right after I went to prison. Over the next 8 years, like, it was just a total mind shift set. I was a cop before I went to prison. So I kind of had I saw the repeats and kind of got, not brainwashed, but kind of had that mentality of, once a mess up, always a mess up. Because I saw the revolving door, saw the people coming back over and over and over.
What did you say you were before prison?
A cop.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow.
I don't share that a whole lot because it's just a big boom to people. But yeah. I was a cop. I didn't make it very long as a cop, but I was a cop. I worked in the jail for 3 years before I was a cop. So I was actually a jailer longer than I was actual police officer. So I kind of conditioned myself to see that. And so when I went to prison, I was looking at myself that way. Like, well, you're just going to be a mess up from now on. Everybody's going to see you as a mess up from now on. Even if you do get out and do right, they're going to remember, the 2 or 3 years there that I was out there acting stupid. But it was, and I think we talked about this beforehand. There was a book I read while I was there called Think Differently, Live Differently by Bob Hamm. Go get it. It's on Amazon. I just bought another copy not too long ago. It's an excellent book. And there's also a YouTube series with it. It's called Foundations of Freedom or something like that by Bob Hamm. It's like a 5-part series. Totally flipped my perspective on everything. Just because it talks about the way that God sees you and not the way that you see yourself or that other people see you.
And how far into prison were you when you had read that book?
5 years.
5 years.
4 years.
Yep. About 2-3 years to finish. What was your mindset in prison, kind of before you had gotten to that point? And maybe even reading the book was kind of a result of switching a mindset. Then after.
Yeah. So it took a little while for me to kind of calm down, I guess you could say. I was still, after the newness of being locked up wore off, you first get locked up, I'm never touching that stuff again. After the newness wore off, it was, I'll still be able to, I can do it on the weekends. I can control it now. Those thoughts start creeping in. And it took a little while before I came to the realization that, starting on the weekends is how they started. Um, you can't control it.
Right.
So it took probably 2.5, 3 years for me to get to the point of realizing, oh, I can't go get out and go do drugs again. And then it was 2000 and let's see, I locked up in 2008. It was 2012 when the change really started happening. So half my time I spent still in a not good mindset,
Right.
So it was 2000. It was definitely 2012 whenever that shift happened.
You had some people, I think, supporting you a bit throughout that
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
Were they able to see that switch in you?
Mhm.
Like, did they notice that?
Yep, they did. Obviously I wasn't going to visitation and telling my parents I can, I'll still be able to do drugs on the weekends.
Sure.
But they did see the change because of the thing. I would start talking about it. Start talking about things I had done, start talking about the change and the way I was thinking now and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the change was definitely there and they could see it.
That's incredible. And then you got out, you were able to find a job shortly after, which is, as I understand, fairly unusual for a lot of people. How did that even come about? I'd love to hear the story behind that.
Yeah. So a friend of mine from when I was a teenager is actually part owner of the company I work for now. And it was 6 months probably after I got out that I got this job. I took a little time when I got out and just chilled. I was blessed enough to be able to do that, readjust, re-get my head into everyday living, all that kind of stuff. So it was I got out in May of 16. I started here in like October, November of 16. And my buddy's mom, who loves me to death too, I guess she had just heard I got out because she texted my mom and was like, hey, I just heard Chris got out. If he needs a job, tell him to call Dannon. So mom relayed the message. I got Dannon's number and called Dannon, showed up for an interview, hired me right on the spot. I started in the back, checking in computers and kind of moved around in the warehouse and the different production departments before they moved me up here to a sales position and then into a manager position eventually.
Had you had a job in prison?
Yeah, you have to have a job in prison unless you're medically unassigned. I worked I worked in the fields for a few years, just out there working in the garden. I
How'd you
hated
like
it,
that?
no, I didn't. It was rough.
It sucked.
It sucked, man. It sucked so bad. Then I took care of the rec yard. So that was a really cool job. I got to put out all the equipment. Like we had bats and balls, softballs and handballs and volleyballs and all that stuff. So put out all that stuff whenever, they would run rec, pick it all back up, clean up the bathrooms and the machines and all that good stuff. That was a good job. I liked it. Then I got a job as the chaplain's clerk, which was excellent because I was in an air-conditioned office most of the time.
That's nice.
Yeah, that was a good job. That was a real good job. And I was real involved with the chaplaincy by that time. I was in the faith-based dorm. God had already started to do all that stuff in my life. So it was really right where I needed to be because I had a lot of access to the volunteers too. They'd come in and I had access to them one-on-one that a lot of the other guys didn't always get because I was in the chaplain's office all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. Chris, I think you and I share our faith. I'm a born again believer, just like you are. I'm also from Texas. If people don't know, I live here in Lane, Utah now, but I still haven't changed my driver's license.
We won't hold it against you unless you change your driver's license.
Oh my gosh! See, that might end up me going to prison. So then we'll have more than one thing to be compatriots on. Gregory, so I know that's kind of your hope. Gregory, when you're in that process of needing to find a new job, you met with a recruiter, which was a great idea. Were you tempted at any point to just kind of give up hope or or get extremely discouraged, or did you get discouraged? And if you and what was your hope that you kind of found in all of that? I imagine you draw a lot of strength from your kids, but I'd just like to kind of hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with my kids. There was a time through the separation that I'd kind of gotten convinced that I was a bad dad, that kind of just needed to get out of their lives and disappear. And that was really dark and scary. And, had ideas of just being a bum, going to South America or something like that. But
Yeah.
Luckily found some really great mentors, and I've had a lot of ups and downs with spirituality throughout my life. Was born Christian, and had a falling out in my later teen years, some family issues, and then got into had a lot of really good Mormon friends growing up, and got into LDS stuff, and that's how I met Mitch. And Mitch is so awesome. He's helped me so much. He's been there for me through all the good and the bad, and just like not judgmental, just like totally loving, totally such a good person. And now I'm getting really into like Vedic philosophy and stuff like that.
Is that kind of like, is that based in like India, Vedic?
Yeah, based in India. It's really
like Buddhist,
Hinduism.
Hinduism
has a lot of parallels with Buddhism. And
what are some main principles from that? Like any kind of quotes or sayings that you try to kind of live as a daily mantra or anything like that?
Just be in the service of God. Just be in the service of others. And one book that I read that really changed things around for me was the Bhagavad-Gita, and it's this guy Arjuna has to go fight this battle, and he doesn't want to fight it, and he doesn't want to kill these people. He sees it as kind of pointless, and God, he just has a conversation with God, and God is like, "This is your duty. You got to do your duty, even though it's like not always what you want to do. Like you got to serve the higher purpose.
Yeah,
serve me."
I'll tell you, Greg, I see you as successful in a worldly view, but I also share that perspective of if all you accomplish in this life is that you're kind to other people, that you're helpful to other people, even if you work your entire life, working at a McDonald's and you're making minimum wage, but you're showing compassion to other people, that's more of a success in my book than any kind of worldly success that we could ever possibly hope to achieve. And there's lots of people out there that are doing just that. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on was not just to share your stories, which I definitely wanted to hear, but also the world is kind of crazy right now. Can I get an amen in the comments on that? The world's a little crazy. Gas prices are through the roof. I mean, you're spending $5, $6, $7 a gallon in some places. You can't do as much as you wanted to. The baby formula shortages. Not trying to make any kind of political statement or any of this. It's just a rough place right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been looking on LinkedIn, folks, but people are losing their jobs like crazy. Ton of layoffs right now, and I think the economy is probably in an even worse shape than we're really admitting. There's still food shortages and some grocery stores and all that. It can be easy to get very, very worried. So I wanted to hear from a couple of guys who have been through the ringer on some real issues and just see what you can kind of offer as advice to the rest of us, even if we haven't kind of shared your experiences. For those people that are, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it, Denise. And Fiona, what would you say to somebody who's just looking at the world? Everything seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. What do we do? How do we move on? Either one of you can take it.
You want to start, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, it sucks. It definitely does. It's hard. It cost me almost $100 to fill my truck up, and that's a kicker, man. Whenever a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was 50 or 60. But there's a quote that I saw in prison, and I almost got it tattooed on me when I was in prison, and I didn't. It's by Robert Frost. Everything I learned about life can be summed up into 3 words. It goes on. And that really, like, as cliche as that sounds, and it's really kind of whatever, dude. Like, I'm going through hell. Like, it goes on, but it really does. You just learn to adapt. For me, it's just been, if I can get through prison, through 8 years in prison, and then I can get through this. And it's my faith in God that has really kept me grounded and kept me from just losing my mind, because on top of all the stuff going on in the world right now, I still have parole stipulations because I'm still on parole. I still can't move around. I still can't travel like I want to travel. I still have to get permission for this and that and everything else. But I know God's in control, and I know it's not going to last forever. I mean, if you, to me, I always try to look at the long game, and you watch it, everything's building right now, as far as how crappy it's getting. It's getting crappier. It can't keep going like that forever, is what I keep telling myself.
Right.
It can't. And if you look at history, it's the same way. I mean, it'll get bad, then it evens out. Then it gets bad, then it evens out. And so I just kind of keep reminding myself of that. God, I know you're in control, and I know this isn't going to last forever. Yeah. Just give me the grace and the strength and the money to survive this,
Do you find that, because Chris, you're a very servant-hearted guy, do you find that by serving others, that helps put things into perspective a little bit more?
It does, and it really keeps my mind off of it. I spend a lot of time just, I do live stream production as a side hustle to grow it into a full-time hustle. But I spend a lot of time just talking to people about live streaming that are interested in getting into doing it. And don't have the money to hire a producer, even if they do, it doesn't fit what they want to do. Like you're doing this just as a personal thing, not as a business thing. And maybe it'll be a business thing later, but it doesn't make sense for you to have a producer right now. You know what I mean? So I spend a lot of time with people like that, just kind of, showing them the ropes in Restream or StreamYard or whatever. And if you stay busy enough doing stuff like that, you don't have time to think about how crappy everything is.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I ever get to that point, you'd be the first guy at the top of the list, because you've built up that trust with me. There's this guy, Matthew Hunt, that I've kind of been talking with a little bit on LinkedIn, and he's saying you buy from people that you know, like, and trust.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I know, like, and trust you, and if I get to that point, we'll have a conversation. Right. Gregory, somebody was making a comment about you sticking through and being that father for your dad. There's so many guys who have been through that exact same struggle, and it's not because they don't love their kids or anything like that, but they just don't see a way out. I just want to say, good for you for going through that struggle and coming out the other side. Your kids would be so much worse off without you. And it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal for them to have you in their life.
It is. And let me interrupt you before you say that. I meant to say that earlier when you said that, no matter how down you get, and I'm not a parent either, but I saw, dads and kids separated when I was in prison, and it is always better for them to have you in their life. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. I see that big time. And
100%.
It took some good mentors, some good friends to remind me of that, and to remind me that I am a good person. I am a good dad. My parents. My mom.
If you're depressed, you can convince yourself of anything, and I mean anything. Even if you're the best in the world at something, you can convince yourself you're the worst in the world at it. Just through depression, it's got to be the number one killer of everything productive in the world.
For sure.
If anyone's out there and y'all have questions, ask those questions. There's no dumb questions here. I've asked plenty of maybe slightly dumb questions myself, just because I'm living my life from my perspective and going through what I've gone through. But you may not get a chance like this. If you know someone who's maybe struggled through some of these things and you're trying to figure out how to help them best, you're not going to find two better guys to talk about, addiction or prison or depression, struggling, and coming out through on the other side. So make sure you put those questions in the comments. Have to go just kind of look through. So we talked about your source of hope. You talked about this a bit, but I want to talk about like just kind of the history of mindsets that you had. So Chris, you're in high school, teacher's favorite, all the parents love you. What was your mindset then, and then going to prison and then coming out, just real short, just kind of going through real quick.
Everybody liked me. I mess up, I go to prison. I immediately worry immediately it hits me that, people are going to look at me differently because of the drugs and stuff like that. To really just kind of a whole conglomeration of stuff when I first got into prison, like I mentioned, it was just so weird to go from everybody's going to look at me different to God doesn't look at me that way. I'm not going to look at me that way.
Yeah.
God says this about me, not this. So this is what I'm going to believe. To now, it's in the past is the past. Doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've gone through. It doesn't matter what crime you've committed. Divorce. I went through a divorce last year too, Greg. We didn't have kids, thank God, but it was final in November.
So rough.
Yeah, it is rough. And, you grow up in church hearing that divorce is rough or divorce is wrong. But when it's out of your control, it's out of your control. Don't beat yourself up over it. And that was something that I know if I hadn't had the mindset changes and the changes that God did in me in prison, when I went through a divorce, I would have been more down on myself. I mean, there's the typical, what could I have done different kind of stuff, but I would have really been hard on myself because I was brought up that it was wrong, So yeah, that's just kind of in a minute what that mindset change was.
Yeah. I'm just kind of going through these comments. Believe it or not, I'm running like the 6th LinkedIn Live, and I just now learned that if you click on the comments, they show up. So
yeah, Michael had a question. Michael Figuarelli.
Oh yeah, Chris, did you have many people in the Christian community shaming you because of going to prison and going through a divorce?
Not at all. Everybody was super supportive. I grew up in a really judgmental type church. But that's the way a lot of the churches were back in the 80s and 90s. And God kind of did a shift in the church as a whole, I think, to where that shame and that condemnation and that, you have to do this, this, and this. He lifted that. He changed that in the church as a whole. So no, I didn't receive any shame at all about it. I had nothing but unwavering support the whole time through all of it.
What was and I'll go to you first on this, Greg. What was the biggest little change for you? Like going from that depression, because I know little bitty steps, and maybe this will help some people out in the audience as well. What was kind of a little shift in either perspective or a little daily thing that you kind of adopted or anything like that kind of really started making a difference? And if you want a minute to think about that, and I can go to Chris, we can come back to you.
Just deciding which one I want to say, but there's a lot of little things. I'd say the biggest little thing is going from being like just thinking selfishly to thinking about others.
Absolutely.
Pity, wanting to serve myself or whatever. Yeah, just being selfish versus just 100% thinking about what can I do for my kids, what can I do for my family, what can I do for my friends, what can I do for others. And that really changing that mindset ended up serving me as well, because I get up and I take care of myself so that I can be of service to others. And yeah.
Do you have like a daily exercise routine that you do or something like that?
I try to. I mean, I get up. I try to get up early in the morning every day. Do meditation, take a shower, read, get outside, exercise, eat healthy, those things. And I think just if I could just stick to those things through the ups and downs, then I could make it through anything. And going back to what Chris said about it goes on. I love that. That's what's kept me through everything in my entire life. Somebody said to me recently, "This too shall pass," and
That's right.
I feel like that is just so solid. And I used to think that just about the bad times, but I realized that being able to realize that in the good times too, and not getting on too much of a high during the good times, makes the low times not so low. If you can just kind of stay steady through the ups and downs, then I think that's huge. So yeah, right now I'm going through a bit of a high with getting the dream job.
Yeah, man.
You've earned it. You've earned it.
Just trying to stay sober, not too much. Just sticking to my routine, sticking to what I need to do, and yeah.
We're going to get to this question from Michael. He's asking all kinds of good questions today.
Yeah, he is.
Chris, I wanted you to kind of touch on that. Just whether it was in prison or out of prison, what was just a little thing that because you were being in prison, you can't control your environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot more, even on parole, you probably have a good deal more control over your environment than you did in prison. What is something little that you were able to do in prison or out of prison that just really made a difference day to day?
Man, just really, being in prison, you had the ability. There's so many things. I'm trying to wrap my head around what would be one little thing. You don't have the ability.
Be a medium thing,
Yeah. You don't have the ability to control, but having a job, a meaningful job, going from, when I was in a rec yard janitor, they had different shifts in prison. I worked on a certain shift, so it was 4 days on, 4 days off, and only worked an hour a day, so it wasn't much.
Mm-hmm.
But going from that to having a meaningful job in the chaplain's office where I could do something that made a difference. And really, I was there 100% to serve the chaplain and serve the volunteers. That really kind of shifted because it gave me some meaning and some purpose.
Yeah.
It was a meaningful job. Even though I enjoyed the rec yard job, it was something that had a little more substance to it than just, scrubbing toilets or putting out balls and bats.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Just do you still know some of those people from back there in that ministry?
Yep, still talk to some of them.
That's great. Glad to hear that. Greg, Michael is asking a question. Greg, now that you've landed your dream job, what's a goal career related that you're striving for now? So what's your goal? What are you going for? Or are you still just thriving off the high of getting this new job?
Well, I don't know if this is exactly, I guess career related. I still don't have my bachelor's degree, so I'm doing my bachelor's online.
Join the club.
Yeah. I'm hoping that'll help provide more opportunities within my career later on.
Sure.
We're in training right now, so I'd say as far as that goes, just studying as much as I can and just trying to learn this new airplane best I can and be the best pilot. It's
and what are you going to be flying?
I'm going to be flying a 737.
737. So what is that?
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into just learning. I bet they put you through the ringer. They want you to know everything.
Yeah, it used to be more intensive than it is now.
I don't know if that's encouraging or not.
I think it's just they used to want you to be able to take apart and put together the airplane again. It's as a pilot,
okay.
that might not be the most important thing. And,
I'm more concerned with you being able to keep it together than take it apart.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So we learn all the systems, generally how they work. If we see an issue in the airplane, where can we suspect it to be coming from, and just to be able to understand it and be able to troubleshoot it, is really all it comes down to. They don't need us to take it apart and put it back together, like I said. But yeah, just a general overview of all the systems, and then then after that is coming down to learning all the flows within the airplane. There's a series of buttons and switches you gotta hit for every maneuver in the flight and for every emergency. So just becoming familiar with those and learning those is what I got for now. And then in a month, I'll go to sim training for a month and a half, and that's when we'll be in a full motion sim, and I'll be, showing them that I know how to turn all the buttons and all the switches, and I'm familiar with all the emergencies, and they'll actually, play out those emergencies. And it's basically just like a month of going through the airplane is burning, and what are you going to do?
Right. There you go. All right. That's some good training right there. You both touched on this quite a bit about building relationships, and there's certain things you can control, certain things you can implement, but no man is an island, and you can't do it by yourself. How important was building those relationships, and what did you kind of learn about building relationships? It's obviously it's hard to maintain those relationships if you're kind of only inward focused, if you're only kind of having selfish thoughts. What's been kind of the progress of making those relationships, and how is it helping you now?
When I was a flight instructor, I made some really good relationships with my students, and just really cared about them and wanted to see them succeed. And that's going on 4 years ago now, and still have great relationships with them, and able to mentor them. And that really up, like, to be able to see them doing well. And yeah, I think that's really important. It gives me a lot of purpose, makes what I'm doing really meaningful. And then on the other end of that, having good mentors, having good people to look to, it's been so huge for me. And just being able to approach them humbly and say, like, hey, I need help, like, I'll do it. Like, and then being willing to do it. It's been huge.
Yeah, awesome. Chris, over to you as well.
Yeah, it's been huge for me too, especially on LinkedIn. I have all people from all different walks of life in my network. Connected with them just because I thought they were cool. Other streamers, marketers, business coaches, all kinds of stuff. So when I didn't know I was doing it at the time. God knew it. Setting myself up for launching this business, and this is just the most recent example. That I've got all these people now I can lean on and ask questions to, if I have a question about this or that, or how to do it this way in business or whatever. That if I hadn't built a relationship with them with no expectations of anything, then I wouldn't have that support. And it's vice versa. There's people like Sam. I've built a relationship with him, so he knows he can ask me questions about streaming. You can't do it by yourself.
No, you
and I think the key is to build the relationship without any expectation of, Sam wants to connect with me because I'm a streamer and he wants all this free advice. You know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing. You build the relationship, and then the natural support comes because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you, just for myself, I give advice pretty freely, and I think you do as well, Chris and Greg. We're gonna get you more into this LinkedIn thing. I'm telling you, the community here is just incredible.
It is.
But I've probably given several $1,000s worth of advice away for free, but at the same time, I've gotten several $1,000s worth of advice for free.
Yes, definitely, man, definitely.
Because I can reach out to people like Chris. I mean, if Chris was charging what he was worth, me having a 30-minute conversation with him would be, it's probably like $80, $90, $100 conversation right there, if we're being honest. And or maybe higher. I don't know where you place yourself. I wouldn't place myself quite that high. But it makes a big difference, because as you're trying to develop I'll just tell anyone, looking in, I have not been through, I would say, as probably as rough stuff as these guys. But in a worldly view, I have some things going against me. I don't have a college degree. I've got very little what you would call corporate or white collar experience. A lot of my background has been very blue collar. I've got a problem in that I treat everyone at the same high level, but that means that I'm going to treat the janitor in a company the same level that I treat a CEO, and not every company is going to be okay with that. And I'm just not always attuned to kind of the social dynamics of kind of these higher businesses and everything. But because I've had so many people looking out for me on LinkedIn, I've done okay for myself. And it makes a big difference, just getting to know people, serving them without any expectation. And that doesn't mean you can't charge for something. You absolutely should for certain things, but I've got some of the best friends in the entire world right here on LinkedIn. And people that I know and trust, and I could tell pretty much anything to, and they'd have my back. And they'll defend you too. Somebody will say something mean in the comments, and you better watch out, because your support's going to come around. So we're about near the end of the hour. Just wanted to say, if you have any other questions real quick, please put them in. We'll be happy to answer them. If you have a question for me, I'll be happy to answer it too. But I wanted to give Chris, I know you have two different LinkedIn live streams. Would you mind talking about the two of them for a minute here?
Yeah. So I have, like Sam said, I have two different ones. One is a weekly show. It's every Monday night at 7 Central. It's called So I Did a Thing. I bring people onto my network that are doing cool things, and we just talk about it. It's just a hangout session most of the time. The one is every other Wednesday. It's called Ending the Stigma. That one's a little more in depth. I have a co-host for that one. Nathan Winsenreed and I co-host that together. And we talk about the struggles felons face, the stigmas associated with felons, and what we can do to kind of end those, just to not kind of normalize. I think the stats are 1 out of 3 people in the United States have been to prison. So, and I'm proof of that right here, because there's 3 of us and I'm one of them. But it's pretty widespread that many people have been to prison. So the chances of you rubbing shoulders with somebody that's been to prison, whether you know it or not, is pretty high. And once they've paid their dues and done their time, why should they carry that jacket with them and have, not be able to get jobs and stuff like that, housing, and just all the struggles. So that's what we talk about.
I like the So I Did a Thing. I think it's a fun show. But your show, Ending the Stigma, I think is probably just about the most important LinkedIn live show that I know of. For somebody like myself who does genuinely care about people coming out of that, because I'm the same as you there, but for the grace of God, honestly. I have a great support system that I think has kept me out of trouble. A mama who really cares and would smack me around. So, in a loving way. So for somebody like myself or anybody watching, obviously go watch the show. But if we're wanting to make a little bit of a difference, what can the average ordinary person do for those folks?
Just not be so quick to judge when you hear somebody's been a felon. That's really where it starts. Don't be so quick to, he's been to prison. Oh, I don't know about him. Maybe he's not going to act right, or she. Maybe they are. You don't know that, but don't be so quick to judge based on that.
Yeah,
like that's the biggest thing.
I would say don't judge lest you be judged as well. In the sense that I think if all of us would be real honest with ourselves and look back, and kids did dumb stuff. We all did dumb stuff as kids.
Yeah,
and I would guess that number would be more like 75%, even if it means just spending one night in jail for all the dumb stuff.
Yeah, because if you think about what about the unconvicted felons, I say all the time, if you did coke at a party, or you took some X or dropped some acid or something at a party one time, you're an unconvicted felon.
Yeah,
It
that's
could have
right.
just as easily been you as it was me.
Yeah. Why hold any judgment over the people who actually have paid
Who
the
got
taxes?
caught? Yeah, exactly.
So, Chris, Greg, thanks so much for being here. Reach out to these guys if you haven't already. And I know some people in the comments, y'all don't know each other, so make connections there.
Yeah, man.
Because you may be coming over from Chris's channel, and other people maybe just know me, but get to know each other. Honestly, having those relationships where it's not just being connected on LinkedIn, but it's having conversations. The more conversations you can have, the better you're going to help yourself and other people. Chris, Gregory, thank you so much for being on the show. I've had a great time. If you all want to hang out just for a couple more minutes after the show and chat, I'd love that. See all y'all right here next week, 11 a.m. MST. I'll have another guest or two on, and I'll be announcing that on Mondays. See y'all later. Goodbye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.